Real business owner.
Whatever your situation is currently is not your forever situation.
That's really what real business owners is, man. Like, we don't care where you come from, where are you going?
Our goal and our job is to reduce the mistakes that you have to make or the money that you have to lose.
You want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be successful, don't give up.
You learn, adjust, and continue to move forward.
Welcome back to another episode of Real Business Owners with your boy, Trevor Cowley. This week's episode is me and Corey McNeil discussing our takeaways from a recent trip to Las Vegas, Nevada. We invested into a mastermind, and that was the first meetup that we attended with 20 other entrepreneurs. We thought it would be a great idea to share with you some of the takeaways that we had while we were down there. And we hope you enjoyed today's episode. And per usual, when you're ready to level up, you know where to find us. JoinRBO.com. Enjoy today's episode. This last week, we spent Wednesday, Thursday, Friday in Las Vegas, Nevada, and we recently invested a big chunk of money, $60,000, into a mastermind. And when I say mastermind, it was exactly that. It was the original concept of a mastermind, where you get a group of people together and you get a whiteboard or you get paper and you say, okay, who's dealing with what? You know, what resources do you need? What resources does everybody else have in the room? And then we start mixing and matching resources and needs and trying to basically serve each other, right? I wanted this episode to be about some of our takeaways, because the whole purpose of doing that is so that you could take that information and reinvest it back into the people that you love and care about. And obviously, that's real business owners. That's you guys that, take the time to listen to the episodes every single week. And so somebody mentioned always add friction to bad decisions. Well, his situation was he would drive home a certain direction where there was a Krispy Kreme.
Yeah, that's
right?
what it was.
And so in his situation, he goes, well, I needed to add friction to my bad decisions. I kept getting pulled into this Krispy Kreme when they would do like their sign that says fresh, because when they were hot and fresh, they were warm, and I would pull in there and get a donut like every day after work. It was just kind of my thing. And so what he decided to do to add friction to his life so that bad decision wasn't as easy to make, as he decided to go a whole different route home, right? Like, you're not going to get drawn into a bad decision if you don't have the option to make the bad decision. And so that was the whole point, is he had said, let's add friction to this bad decision by going the long way home, so to speak, so that that's really not even an option. It's not something that, maybe he does think about it still, but it's not as easily accessible. You would have to go out of your way to get the donut. And when you go out of your way that far, it's kind of obvious that thing has a lot of control over you, right?
Well, and the cool part, that was actually to build off of when he said that, is that you, first of all, you have to even have a certain level of awareness.
Yeah.
Right? You got to, like, hey, this is a problem. Like, I see that I'm not getting to where I want to be because of X. And so that's when homeboy was like, yeah, dude, I had the problem with the, Krispy Kremes were calling my name. Adding friction. That actually was a really cool.
So adding friction to bad decisions and reducing friction between things that you want more of, right? So if you want to exercise more, an example there would be you would put your workout clothes out the night before. You would call a friend and say, hey, meet me here at this time, right? You're reducing friction to you and the decision that you need to make, because if the clothes are already set out and somebody's going to meet you somewhere at 6 a.m. for the workout, the last thing that you're going to do is leave somebody hanging, right? And so those were both pretty cool aha moments, is adding friction to bad decisions and reducing frictions to good decisions. And I think it's a good segue into just rebuilding, right? These rebuilding phases that everybody goes through in their life, whether you're rebuilding your physique, whether you're rebuilding your mindset, whether you're rebuilding your marriage, whether you're rebuilding your business, everybody's going to go through rebuilding phases, right? But you're not going to be able to rebuild anything if you're not aware enough of what you want more of or what you want less of. I want less arguments with my wife, or I want more money, or I want to feel better in my body. I want to feel that more, right? I want to feel less depressed. So there's all of these different emotions and all these different things that are going on. The majority of people obviously numb themselves to some of these things that are going on, whether it's, again, through food, drugs, alcohol, social media, anything that can distract you from the things that you need to really shine a light on that would make you better. Unfortunately, when you shine a light on where you're weak, that means that there's work to be done. And so your brain doesn't really like to go in the areas that you lack, because then it would require you to have to do work. So it's easier to just to distract yourself versus shine light on it.
You can either deny it or make a commitment to it. That was my takeaway on it.
Yeah, exactly. So what were some of your takeaways of the shindig over those 3 days?
We set a price, what X is going to cost us. So I want to get in shape, and it's going to cost me getting up every morning, and I got to do this. I got to eat right. I got to our brains go through this process, right?
Yeah.
But he was saying most people, that's where they get to before they ever actually get the benefit of the thing. They get to a place where they declare the price is too high. Your brain's going to make it worse than the actual reality of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like, that's one of the difficulties, is learning to overcome that. We set the price of something, what the exchange is going to be on it, knowing that there's going to be value, but then they're like, no, the exchange is way too high. I don't even want to try it, without actually even putting forth the effort to try it. So that was kind of this little aha moment.
I heard Ed Milet say that before. The people, what is it going to cost me? It's costing too much. It's costing too, that was kind of his thing. It's your brain sitting there saying I can't, this is too much. It's too much. It's too much. Back up. Right. And in his eyes, he's like, I'm telling you right now, when you all out commit that this is something that I'm going to do, it actually makes things easier, because what's happening in that moment is you're giving yourself options. You're giving yourself an option to quit. You're giving yourself an out, because now you're starting to entertain the thoughts. In other words, what is it costing you? What the price is that you're having to pay for what it is that you say you want. Obviously, you started down a path or down this journey of starting a business, or, marrying your spouse, or this fitness journey that you're on for a reason. You were leaving where you were because you didn't like where you were at one point. And somewhere along the path of you leaving where you were that you didn't like to try to get where you were trying to go, you decided, based upon the discomfort that you were experiencing in the moment, that it's no longer worth it. When in reality, you're going to default back to the very same person in the very same spot that you were at, that you hated originally anyways, that made you want to do the work to create a whole new result. So when you all out commit and say, I don't really care what the price is, I'm willing to pay it, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get X result. We talked about this, right? In terms of if you woke up, and Ed Milet has a podcast about this, and your baby was missing, okay, are you going to go through the process of being this is costing too much? I'm exerting way too much effort to try to find my child. You're not measuring anything. There's one thing that you're dead set on. I'm going to find my child. You're going to discard what people think about you. You're not going to care about that. That doesn't mean anything, because you're so dead set on the goal, the task, the thing that you want. The problem is they just don't want what they want bad enough. Because when you use a whole different example, your child's missing, you're going to want that so bad that you'll make a post on social media. You're not going to feel awkward or weird about it. You'll get in front of a news station if you're a woman with no makeup.
Well, Napoleon Hill talks about it in his book, singular focus, having the one thing, that's
one
it.
thing, a target.
Yeah.
And reducing your options. You're not going to debate whether or not the cost or the price is too high, doing whatever you've got to do to try to find your child. And so now we start backtracking that. Okay, now let's look at your fitness. Now let's look at your finances. Now let's look at your marriage. Let's look at your spirituality, right? Let's look at your mentality. How are you mentally, right? There's no cost that's too high to be physically fit, mentally fit, financially fit, have a good relationship, and be spiritually fulfilled. You can't say that, okay, that's not worth what this will bring. You can't. The reason being is because you've never felt the other side of it, so that you don't have a logical argument to say that there's not worth there, that the value isn't there on the other side of it. What you're doing is measuring the discomfort that you have to go through to value that you don't even understand or can't comprehend right now.
Well, this helps me. This one, I'm actually glad I wrote it down. I totally forgot I'd written this down. He said, having everything we want isn't a gift. It is a privilege, but it's actually it's a duty. Like God is giving you these things, the universe, whatever you want to call it, right? It's giving you these talents. It's giving you these opportunities. It's your duty to honor that and actually execute on it. And that one actually made me uncomfortable in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I knew I was like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well, I mean, I guess it goes back to the whole point of joining masterminds is to give yourself that space to ask yourself the questions maybe that you've been avoiding, or maybe make the commitments to do the things that you know you should have been doing that would require discomfort.
dude, there's a weird magic that happens in them.
Yeah.
You got this total group of strangers, right? To where everybody just knows, like, you check your ego at the door, like you're here to grow
Yeah.
and help other people invest in that. There's a really cool magic that sits inside of those rooms that, it's just been it's a cool thing to experience. If people are ever on, like, dude, if you're on the fence about it, I don't care. I mean, obviously it depends on the caliber of the mastermind, you know what I mean? But like, I would say do it. Like, don't even figure your shit out after that commitment. When you were first talking about this one, I'm like, dude, that's a little bit of it's got a little bit of a coin to it, right?
What?
60 grand. Like that's,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You start getting to an investment point of that. But when you start doing the math too, who's in that room? Dude, one of the guys that was in the room was the founder of one of the products that I've used. And I know that sold in the high tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, I don't know what his take was or any of that kind of stuff. Just a normal dude in there. You know what I mean? We're just sitting there BSing. He's a really cool guy. And, he's been in that mastermind since 2008. And I'm like, so, like, what are you doing this for? And he's like, dude, this is like my church. He's like, dude, this is like my temple. This is where I come in to actually realign with where I want to go and the people who I want.
Well, he probably feels somewhat obligated because I would guess that was there through.
Dude, he said that was fundamental. Yeah.
Yeah. It was there through the entire process of the build and him exiting that.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of like, man, maybe I wouldn't be where I am today, where the individual that I am, to have created something that has that much value in the marketplace to be able to get tens of millions, if not, 100 million,
whatever
plus,
the number
right?
was,
whatever the number was that he sold that business for. And so, I mean, I really think this comes down to, determining where you are. And I just really don't believe that human beings are good at evaluating self and determining where they're at, honestly, by themselves in their environments of comfort. In other words, in their office or at their home or the places that they visit frequently, right? These are the places that you go to that you're very familiar with. And in order to make new and different decisions, it kind of does take a whole new environment, which is what we did. We picked up, we went to Vegas and put ourselves in a whole new environment. And what that environment did is help us determine, one, where we are and what our priorities are moving forward. Because how many times have you said, hey, really, where am I? What? In other words, they called it your GPS signal. Find out where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
You can't know where you're going unless first off, you know where your starting point is, right? How many people say, and this is my starting point, and take an honest look at themselves and say, this is where I falter. This is where I lack. It's a place to help you determine where you are and what your priorities are, what you do, what you want to do moving forward. Because I think a lot of business owners just show up in their business every single day and they hope one day that they magically wake up to a beautiful destination of, a shit ton of money. And they just happen to be like so-and-so that has the cars and the houses and all of that was by design. You can't get to that type of a destination without designing it and knowing that that's what your goal is. And so if that's what your goal is, where are you at right now? And what do you have to change about your situation, yourself, the environments that you put yourself in order for you to make that destination a possibility? I mean, that's where it really all boils down to.
I think for me, and this is one thing that I've and this has been kind of vulnerable. most of my life, I've put my happiness out into the future. I'll be happy when this.
Yeah.
I'll be happy when this. Like, dude, that might as well be like tattooed on me. I've said it so many times, but that was something that came to like the center of my attention. He said the goal is to live in a way that at the end of the day you say, damn, that was a cool day. And I've keep thinking like, dude, when our revenue is this, when we're doing this. But the reality is this is a gift. This is a blessing. You know what I mean? I know there's a ton of people listening who would trade me seats. I do have an appreciation for what we're doing. Now it's at this place now where I just feel like we have all the tools, the resources, the skills, the network, all of this. I can just focus on like what we're doing, our relationships, our friendships, investing in the people around us. And maybe that came with age, but this was cool to help me refocus. Happiness is a way of traveling and not a destination. Is that along the line, I tend to kind of forget that. And that was one of my biggest takeaways from that meetup, is just to be more chill, right? In having more appreciation for being where I'm at in this process.
One of the questions that I wrote down is, if you don't make changes to your current lifestyle, what areas would improve with time and which areas would decline with time? So nothing changed. You just kept at the same actions and habits, showing up in the manner in which you show up today. What areas in your life would improve and what areas of your life would decline? Right? And I think that that's an important question, because our actions are leading us somewhere. We just don't forecast our actions out enough, right? And we just, it's this one bad decision. Every day it's just one bad decision, so it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. But then there's this compound factor that happens. Once it compounds, 3 to 5 years from now, maybe your health has declined, your finances have declined, your relationship has declined, right? It's like death by 1,000 cuts. So you might not be doing anything that's totally devastating to, your relationship or your finances or whatever it is, like where visually you could see it and it's like, damn, I really need to make a change. That's really the problem, is you're looking for obvious things that need to change versus, okay, little teeny adjustments that you could make along the way, because those little adjustments end up being something massive 3 to 5 years down the road. And so your decisions are leading you somewhere. If the decisions of your current lifestyle are going to put you in a situation where 3 to 5 years from now that your life is going to be enhanced or improved, then that should bring you some sort of peace. When you know that you're doing everything that you possibly can to get the outcome and the result that you want, you should be able to rest easy at night and not have anxiety or not have wonder or not, feel like I'll be happy when. You should be happy and satisfied right now
in the process
with what you're doing, because you know for a fact that time's going to take care of you. And I think that the people that have anxiety, they're worrying so much about all these what ifs and these false situations in order to keep their brain busy, because they're not really busy actually doing something that would improve their life, right? So in actuality, when you put forth a massive amount of effort to change your physical state or your financial state, and even though that there's not a massive result that just showed up on your doorstep because you're putting forth massive effort right now, there's this lag period that happens. But that should give you a level of comfort that most people don't get to experience, because they're not doing that level of work. They're not taking that much massive action. They're kind of dabbling in this idea of, hey, I want better, but they keep defaulting back to what's familiar, So,
dude, going back to what you said a little bit ago, part of my problems in the past, this was really hard for me to accept this. I was afraid. I think I may even said this on another podcast. Most of my life, I actually had this knot in my stomach, right? I was worried what the outcome was going to be. And then I really realized that for people who are, when you want to control, right? When you really have a hyper sense of control, deep down inside, you're afraid that the outcome is going to be something what you're willing to accept, right? But my fear was based in the fact that I wasn't putting in the actions to actually put things into my control.
Yeah.
I wasn't willing to stay late. I wasn't willing to make phone calls. I wasn't willing to exercise. Right?
Creating more
All
problems.
of it. Yeah. So then that anxiety was being built up because of the fact that I actually knew deep down inside there was actually something I could have done about it. But I just wasn't being honest and real with myself. So I would try to find other ways to distract it, which in turn you ignore a problem, it tends to grow and gets worse, over time.
I think that's a form of depression as well.
Oh, 1,000%.
I think that when you find yourself in a state of depression, you find yourself in a state of depression because you know that you can actually be doing more and you're choosing not to. So your brain and your body are just physically like, come on. Like,
dude, there's a sense that this is coming from somebody who lived with that for years and years and years.
Yeah.
That like there is within depression, for those who can't relate, there's this isn't earth shattering, but it's like a hopelessness. Like you actually feel like I'm stuck in this marriage, I'm stuck in this business, I'm stuck here, and I can't do anything about it. But the truth is you actually can.
Mm-hmm.
Again, going back to what we talked about, you're already saying it won't be worth it if I put in the effort to do it because I'd have to move out, I'd have to file a divorce with the attorney, I would have to replace my partners, I'd have to move my office location. You go through this process, you feel so overwhelmed that you're just like, fuck it, I'm just going to stay right here.
Yeah.
Because this misery is
Stay in
something
misery. Yeah.
that I'm familiar with, right? But going back to what I said earlier, is that I don't believe that the universe would plant that thought in your head without having the ability to perform on it. It's not going to come to you and say, hey, where you're at, there's a better life for you. That would be cruel. That would be a really cruel creator that would actually do that to us. But somewhere deep inside of you, there's something that's telling you there's a better life for me over there. You just can't overanalyze the situation before you don't take any action.
Let me ask you this: what made you move out of that state or decide to make a change?
I drank a lot, right, for a few too many years, and there was a moment when I'm actually sitting on the bed, and I'm really sick. I mean, I'm really sick, and I don't know why this thought crept into my mind, but I just had this kind of mental picture of the 8-year-old version of me walking into the doorway and looking at me sitting on the edge of the bed. And I got pissed as if I was watching a movie. And I was like, that's bullshit. Like that little dude, that's what he has to look forward to. This is his future. And I was like, that bothered me so much that I was willing to make that change because I didn't want that dude to have that. Not me personally, right? It's just this 8-year-old version of me.
Well, what it comes down to is it was a painful thought.
Yeah.
To think about that.
Oh, it broke my heart. That's what to look forward to. Yeah.
Is the pain that somebody's experiencing, is that a negative thing or is it a positive thing?
Dude, that turned out to be a huge gift.
Exactly. So when somebody's down at a low point and they're feeling hopelessness and they're feeling a lot of
Bro, I'm sitting across from you.
Pain is the thing that actually usually propels people to do something.
But I'm sitting across from you right now because in that moment I made a commitment and I took action on that. That's simple.
But why did you make a commitment to take action?
Because the thought of it ending like that, or the thought of that's what the outcome was, that was pretty shitty, bro.
Well, everybody's motivated by what? Pain or pleasure?
Yeah.
It was shitty. You could not continue to endure what you were enduring. It was too much. A change had to happen. Like it had to happen, or else something bad was change was going to happen regardless, right? Like it's either going to get worse or it's going to get better, but you're not going to stay neutral because the pain was too great. Either you're going to increase the pain, take your own life, or you're going to say, nah, I have to do something different. And so how many people are going through a series of extreme pain, extreme discomforts right now? Maybe the extreme pain and that extreme discomfort is trying to tell you to move, to do something different, to make a change. But yet you still show up as the same version of yourself as you did yesterday. And you're trying to hold on to a little hope, but every day that goes by, you're a little bit more hopeless. And until the pain becomes so great that it forces you to take action and move and make a commitment to see a different result. In other words, show up in a different manner, take different actions, you're going to continue on the path that you're on. You're going to continue to experience the discomfort that you're experiencing.
But see, I think inside of this lesson for me was this idea that what I had was that the outcome was different than what my reality was. What I actually thought the end of my life was going to look like, I was not clear. And that was just, I'm like, this isn't cool.
I think this is a good segue into you can't make progress while at the same time defending your position.
That's right there.
So,
dude, I would have told you, I would have denied what you, 100%.
So there was going to be a period of time that you would defend.
If you said, Corey, there's a problem, I'd have said, yeah, but.
Yes. That's what I'm saying.
But this is what life gave me. This is what happened. This is why I'm this way.
You were, exactly.
Yep.
So it finally got to a point where you were no longer willing to defend your position.
It wasn't the but.
Right?
It's just the yeah.
And so every single time that somebody came to you, hey, man, blah, blah, blah. Well, this happened to me, this happened to me, this happened. In other words, you're repeating a story in your head.
It's worse when you actually have a valid excuse.
That's the thing.
That's the worst part, when you have a valid one.
Well, I think that the majority of people, life happens to everybody.
Sure it does.
Life happens to everybody's going to deal with,
bro, it was a series of small little decisions.
Yeah.
Series of small little decisions.
Death by 1,000 cuts, right? And then guess what? Now you have 1,000 little reasons to justify where you are in order to
the people and the habits and all the things,
all of those, and you continue to put yourself in those same environments in order to justify why you feel the way you feel, because it's better to have these justifications, because it almost feels good to know that you have reasons why you feel the way that you feel, and then you defend your position. Now you are finally ready for better. Why would better find somebody that's full of bad decisions? It doesn't make sense. They're not deserving of better. So why would better show up on their doors? They're not going to take care of better. So why would they have that option? But when you become self-aware enough and you say, okay, this is where I can improve, it's weird how certain opportunities and certain doors start opening up for you so that you could explore better, right?
Well, that goes back to what we were saying earlier. I think it is a duty for the talents and gifts and opportunities that are provided for you. It's like your obligation, it's your duty to step up to accept them.
If you want growth, you have to find something about yourself that you are willing to reject. Everybody wants to defend their position. I know for me, I was my biggest hindrance to success when I was young and I was a sales guy and I was making okay money. And then I got to the point where, there was business ownership came into play, 6-figure, 150 grand a year. Nobody could tell me anything. One, I didn't ever think that I would ever get to that level of income based upon what I was told, growing up and my grades and drug addiction, this, that, the other. So I almost had an ego that was too big and for my britches, right? So in other words, there was nothing about me to reject. I couldn't get any better. I have already received better than I ever thought I could. And then when it got to the point of me realizing that I was my own ceiling, then I started putting myself in rooms around other people where it was like, oh, wow, 150 grand or $200,000 a year is really not that much. There's so much more. I could evolve so much more, not just financially, but as a human being. And so I had to find pieces of myself to start rejecting.
Reread that again.
If you want growth, you have to find something about yourself that you have to reject. So you take little slivers and be like, I'm rejecting this version of myself. I'm completely changing it. The way that I'm doing it isn't working.
If you have a hard time with that, you know how you can find the part that you need to reject. I had a disagreement with my sister the other day. Remember this?
Mm-hmm.
So they came into town, her and my brother, and she got really, really short really quick, and it went into like attack mode, right? It triggered me. I got really upset with her, and I started kind of like, and finally I ended up walking out, and I don't get to see either of them very often, and I missed out on that opportunity to be able to spend the time with them because my ego came into alignment with that, right? Like it was fighting me on it. Dude, and that was the day that we drove down to this meetup. So that's been playing in the back of my head is like, what could I have done differently in that situation? Like, what was it? And what I noticed are the things that tend to set us off, the things that are kind of almost triggering for us, is the actual characteristic for the trait that we don't like in ourselves. So talking about shaving something off.
Yeah, rejecting it.
Is when she comes in, because she's very opinionated, and guess what? So am I. You know this. You've seen it, right? And it's a part where somebody can come in and maybe challenge me in an area of SEO or marketing or whatever. Boom, I get like that.
Triggered.
So it is a mirror, and I see it, and I was like, so that whole process was like, I'm like, okay, so I need to get rid of that part of me. Like, I need to just be like, okay, cool. You're first of all, you're not going to have the power or the control over me, but it's a part of my character I actually don't like, and I need to change now. You know, but up until then, through that whole thing, I thought she was the one that was in the wrong.
Stuff like that doesn't happen without some casualties, you know?
No, but the bright side of that, making lemonade, is that, yeah, I came to that realization is it's the traits in other people that we tend to have the least tolerance for are the ones that we need to remove in ourselves first.
When somebody said, hey, Cameron Haynes runs a marathon a day or something like that, I said, fuck that guy. That was literally I'm like,
but the question is why?
Who's this fucking guy?
Yeah, but what was it inside of you that felt challenged by that?
That somebody is out there literally and figuratively outworking me, running circles around me, making me feel like me getting after it was nothing, because I would give myself credit because I went to the gym 5-6 days a week that I was getting after it. Now all of a sudden he was blatantly saying, dude, you're not really getting after it. I know you're giving yourself credit for getting after it, but you're really not. You're leaving so much on the table. Which did what? Would make me have to do more work if I wanted to extract more of my potential and see what truly is on the table. And it's like, fuck, I want to reject the idea of having to do more work. I just want to give myself credit for what I'm doing right now. What I'm doing is good enough. I want to shine light. What about this over here? What about my finances? Let's look over there. You know, like I want to try to find the areas in which I do perform well, and I want to highlight those areas. But when then somebody comes to the table and says, hey, this person, you know, if it kicks up a feeling like that, one, obviously there's some personal growth that needs to happen, because you should be like, wow, that's impressive. That should be the first thought is, that's humanly possible? I wonder what that person had to endure and go through in order to get to that level. Because it's not like you start at day one and just start doing that.
Right.
What inspired somebody to go out there and really go through the discomfort that they had to go through in order to get to that level, to where you're literally making somebody that's a high performer feel like shit about themselves, which was me in the moment.
So this reinforces my concept, my idea. You had an emotional response.
I did have a high emotion. I literally
and
said,
I had an emotional response.
Immediately, I said, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Kind of in a jokingly manner. It's not like I was being totally aggressive. I'm like, yeah, fuck that guy. Like trying to brush it off.
But deep down it bothered you.
It bothered the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And I called myself out within about 3 to 5 minutes of that. And I Googled him.
But dude, that going back to the thing of my sister, I was more upset at me and my response than what her thing was.
Yeah. It was something that we discussed, you know, a week or two ago in terms of business problems. Nobody has business problems. They have people problems. There's no such thing as a business problem, because you can map out a business on a piece of paper. It doesn't really have a problem, right? Like it.
Yeah, because it's not living and breathing.
It's not a living, breathing thing. It cannot have a problem. Now, when you put living, breathing things, human beings, into the equation, that's when things start getting complicated, right? Somebody's not calling a customer, somebody's calling in sick, or somebody's somebody's not doing, which creates what? There's a ripple effect that happens that ripple eventually gets to you, the business owner. And when it gets to you, by that time, it's a problem. But what this tells me is there's also a ripple effect that goes the other way. And that's kind of what you're talking about, right? Like cool. The employee is creating a negative ripple effect that eventually hits you, and then you have to deal with the negative recourses of somebody else's actions or decisions because it is your business. Mm-hmm. But then there's also a ripple effect that goes the other way. And what you're saying is, hey, you're trying to control your ripple effect, and what did you learn from this? What is your takeaway? In other words, you're trying to ripple something to where they're actually growing.
They're feeling empowered
empowered, and there is a takeaway because you want that to not just happen repetitively. What's the takeaway so
you can avoid it in the future.
Avoid it later, right?
Yeah, that was one of the first moments when we were coming back. This was years and years ago. We were driving in between Las Vegas and St. George, Utah, and we're going around all these turns. You were getting a text message from, this is a bookkeeping or accounting employee. They were drunk. It's getting kind of a little bit irate. And at that point, he got pretty hostile and pretty much took the attitude as like, fuck you, I'm out, whatever. And I remember exactly in that moment, I looked over, you were on the phone, you were still, texting him. And my response is like, you made a statement, you said, it was basically to the effect of like, what part of this do I own? Do you remember this?
Yeah, I remember that.
And you're like, well, and I'm like, fuck that, you didn't own it, that's all on him, 100%.
Yeah.
You're like, no, because then I'm like 100% powerless. Like somewhere, like, dude, whether it was like we created the environment that allowed this guy to feel entitled to be able to talk to us like that.
Yeah.
Or that we didn't call him out earlier on like personal life choices of, coming to work hungover. What, like somewhere in this, I have some accountability in that.
Yeah.
And that was the first moment when I was like, holy shit, I've been doing a lot of this wrong. Because I'm just super reactive, but I was also really driven by ego, right? I just wanted to be right and feel good in the moment.
Yeah.
But it was where the ability to be able to look inward, that was the first time that I actually saw that in a professional setting where somebody's like, dude, this guy I felt was totally in the wrong. But yet then you're like,
he was.
Oh, 100% he was.
Sure.
In fact, we got back late that night and all his shit was already cleared out of the office. That was like 12:30 at night, which means he came over drunk to come get his shit.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that dude just passed away too. But
yeah,
to look where his choices took him.
Yeah.
That was one of the guys I actually had been reaching out to. And it was like, bro, dude, this is where this path goes, man. Like, you can't. Yeah. But again, he wouldn't take accountability for his shit. I can't force him, right?
He didn't reject a portion of himself, right? Yeah. He wanted to defend his position, and he defended it all the way to...
And I remember asking him, I'm like, bro, is this, when you were young, I didn't say 8 years, I'm like, bro, when you were young, is this where you thought it was going to be? But the craziest thing is you look at every component of his life was to reinforce that he wanted to be miserable.
Yeah.
That's what he actually really ultimately wanted.
Nice guy.
Dude, really nice guy.
That's what was weird. Like during the day at work, it's just the kindest, nicest soul in the whole world.
But you get a drop of 80 proof in him and he's like...
you put him with a bottle at night after work, Yeah. He entertains his demons, But talk about a tale of two different sides of an individual. Thanks for listening to another episode of Real Business Owners. As you guys know, the goal here is to make you think differently, act differently, so that you have the ability to see different results. If you will, please rate and review the show, share the show with somebody that you love and care about, and per usual, guys, keep kicking ass. We'll see you next week.